All right, everybody. Welcome to this month's One Life Fully Lived webinar. And as you can see, we decided to come with some new hot attire. This is Matt Aitchison, and I am excited to be bringing this month's webinar to you guys. We got some awesome speakers, really inspirational stories. They're going to share a little bit about themselves, and they dress for the occasion, that's for sure. We got Jeff Coats, who's looking like he's about to come out of a Eminem rap video, and we have the cool princess Rhonda Smith, and really excited for you guys to hear their story. Before we get started, though, I wanted to let you guys know and remind you about our amazing conference that we have coming up on the East Coast, Get Your Flow in Philly. It's going to be on May 16th and 17th. And it is a jam-packed lineup with amazing speakers, awesome guests, and we are just extremely excited to be sharing with all of our West Coast peeps and East Coast peeps joining in the East Coast this time. So as we get started, I just want to remind you guys the Q&A section on your button on the side here. Click that if you guys want to ask and engage with some questions during their story. We'll make sure that we interject at appropriate times. But why don't we go ahead and dive right in, and I will let Rhonda Smith start. So Rhonda, why don't you kind of tell a little bit of people about your past and where you were at, and kind of fast forward us a little bit to present day and where you're at now.
Okay, so thank you for having me on the Google Hangout, by the way. This is awesome. It's a privilege to finally be on this side of the Hangout. Okay, so there I was. It was a spring night, April 2013, so 2 years ago, and I was in a hotel room. I was nearly homeless, and I had been a drug addict for about 4.5 years. I walked past a mirror in my room and saw my reflection. And it was really the first time I'd looked at myself in a really long time. And I was almost unrecognizable. I weighed 45 pounds more than I do now. I had gray skin, my hair was falling out, and all of the normal signs of a severe drug addict. My eyes were black. I had devastated my past so much over that time that I didn't think that there was a way to recover from it. I had attempted suicide earlier in that time, and that was what my train of thought was just suicidal tendencies and suicidal thoughts, that I was never going to be able to recover from this time. I remember looking at myself and saying to myself, "Help me," in the mirror. And when I did, I don't know what I was hoping for, but I laid down and went to bed and cried myself to sleep. And the next morning I woke up, and things were different. I was different. I had this feeling of hope inside of me. I had all of this incredible, power and clarity and actually abundant mindset to say that I could actually change my life. I was very inspired to write. The whole time I had been on this journey to hell, I had journaled hundreds of journals of this time, and my first instinct was to go journal. So I sat down for about 4.5 hours in this room, and I literally had like this enormous download come, and what poured out of me was like a blueprint of this life, of what I needed to do to change my life. It was tools, it was ideas, it was techniques, it was new way of thinking. It was pretty much what I needed to be able to move forward. So
tell me a little bit more about that, Rhonda. So you were in a place where you had been doing drugs for how many years now?
4.5 years, every day.
4.5 years, every single day. And I'm sure at that point in your life you were basically in a rut, deciding that for that time frame you didn't want to make any choices differently that were going to lead you on a new path, until that one defining moment when you looked at yourself in the mirror and it kind of clicked for you. And you said something to me in our preview interview was, what was it mentally, spiritually, physically that made you feel like there was more out there for you?
Well, I had never I had never walked with purpose in my entire life. So it's really easy to go wherever you're going when you don't really have a purpose or an intent of where you're going. Any road will take you there. And I had always been one to take the easy road, the shortcut, whatever would get me to success or love or whatever I needed the fastest, without maybe doing as much work or without putting in the time. So all of these journeys on all of these roads had gotten me really far out from where I wanted to be. I mean, I had been working for major financial institutions. I had been happily married, making 6 figures. I mean, I wasn't the typical person who would fall into being a 4.5-year drug addict. So it was just a series of bad choices and bad events and bad roads. But the thing that was the biggest lesson for me is that it was a cycle. It was a perpetual cycle in my life. I would find success and happiness. I would burn out on it. I would fail. I would fail more. I would make really, really bad choices, and then I would have to come home to my family, recover, get better, and then go out and do it all over again. And each time I repeated the cycle, it got worse and worse and worse. Like I always say, I had to go further down the rabbit hole than most people to really learn my lesson. So from there, that morning when I woke up, that one thing that I had been missing, the purpose and the direction and what I was supposed to do, was I didn't really have faith. I really didn't have the understanding that the universe was there and that we were all one. I mean, that was the first thought that I woke up with, was that we were one and that it was something bigger. And for the first time in my entire life, I knew that the world was my oyster and that I could do whatever I wanted to do, and that universe, source, whatever you want to call it, was going to make sure that it happened for me because I could do it too. So the mindset went away of there's no way I can ever recover from this, my life is over, to I can do anything I want in literally like less than 8 hours. So it was magic. It was pure magic for me.
Wow.
And I stopped doing drugs that day. 4.5 years of drugs, and I just walked away from it. I know, yay!
That's awesome. I mean, first and foremost, someone with a 4.5-year drug habit quitting cold turkey is that deserves huge applause and credit. And it's not only a huge accomplishment, but it's, I think, an inspiration, because drugs, for a lot of people, whether they're successful or impoverished areas, that we all deal with it in some capacity. So why don't you tell us about, so when you had that aha moment, what was it when moving forward that you said, this is who Rhonda's going to be, this is my mark, and this is the new trek that I'm on in order to reinvent myself?
Well, I was really done with the old way of thinking. I was really done with the negativity, and all I wanted in my life was to surround myself with positive and really abundant mindset. And I really didn't even know what those words were at the time. I really didn't understand any of it, but I knew that I had to go home to my family. So I had to start my life all over again at the age of 38 years old, which was really humbling and hard, but at the same time it was the best thing that ever happened. So I came home, and Facebook was my first really amazing inspirational resource to be able to inspire others and be inspired and learn. So I went from hating it to loving it. And then I live in a very small town. There's not a lot of opportunity here, so that kind of quickly weighed on me, like, what am I going to do? I didn't finish college. I don't know what I'm going to do. And literally after I had that mindset, an hour later, I came across the One Life Fully Lived post for the November 2013 conference, and I just signed up to go. I had to borrow the $25 to be able to go because I was still in that really place of huge lack and not knowing what to do, which being able to say that is so empowering now, because at that time I couldn't own that. And the biggest part of all of this is being able to, if you want to go somewhere in life, first you have to know where you are. And you have to be really authentic about it, and you have to be truthful about it with yourself, and that's when everything starts to shift. So I went to this conference, and I heard people talk about being legendary and living these huge legendary lives, and it really felt like anything I wanted was possible. And then that's when all the work came, because I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So I went on this magical walk with Tim on our river walk, and he's like, what's your one thing? And I'm like, one thing? I've got 45 things I love. And he's like, you got to have one thing. Let me know when you have your one thing. So I went to work for One Life. That was awesome. I got to be the community director. It kind of got me back into the work mode and getting back out into the being a normal person mode. And for 10 months, I struggled heavily with trying to figure out what's my purpose. I would call Tim on the phone. I would go have tea with him and Tina. And I'm like, what's my purpose? He's like, you're driving me crazy. Just figure it out. And then on a Wednesday, I chose real estate. Real estate was my purpose. And on Thursday, I woke up and I knew that that wasn't my purpose, and it was to be a life coach. And I wanted to help people through this process and recover from life and figure out what their purpose was and just to be their best selves. So again, I just made a decision, and it doesn't mean that life's easy at that point. It means that work comes, right? So I literally had to rewire my brain, which I had been doing over this last year, but I had to do it in a really massive, big way and learn to think differently.
So tell me about the brain rewiring. So one, you hit on some great things that I want to point out is okay. You're 38 years old. Most people would say, well, I'm not in my 20s anymore, and how am I going to reinvent myself at this age? And I think what you've done, especially in the short window of time that you've done it, is insane. And the next thing I want to point out is you plugged into a community of people where, one, you were willing to put in the work, but the environment and the people that you surrounded yourself with, I know everybody's heard of the sum of 5, and we are who we hang out with. So whether that's positive people, you know, you're probably going to be the 6th positive person in that group. If it's a bunch of lazy, negative self-talkers, you're probably going to be the 6th person in that group. So environment and the willingness to put in the work, I think, are 2 great things about you that every time I'm around you, 1, your energy is amazing, and 2, you are always there with a positive attitude and willing to take on whatever workload is put on your plate. So there's obviously a few common themes and threads in someone who doesn't allow their past to define their future, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are relating to this story, whether it has to do with drugs or it has to do with poor financial decisions. The whole concept of your past doesn't equal your future is somewhat of this concept of, and we all make mistakes, right? Nobody's perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes. You're going to hear about Jeff's mistake that really impacted his life, but I talk about this rear view mirror and windshield concept, and the rear view mirror is small, but it's right in front of us to make us remember what was behind. It's not the windshield. It's not that big visionary piece in order to allow us to keep focusing forward. It's there to remind us what's behind us, because if all we did was focus on that, we'd crash. But it's there to also remind us that this is the inspiration of why we're doing what we're doing moving forward and giving us that direction. And yours is a really cool story that really ties in with that. So when you decided to become a life coach, you started implementing all of these different techniques and successes. And tell us where you're currently at today versus the drug addict Rhonda that you would call yourself 5 plus, 6, 7 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it was 3 years, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Is how quickly this has happened. I know, it's crazy. So that's today awesome. I am creating an incredible business. I am doing everything I can to impact every life that I come in contact with every single day. The biggest piece in all of this is I've really embraced my story. So rather than try and create this brand and this business based on I travel the world, which I will do, and that's my biggest plan. And all of these things, I decided to create my brand is where I am right now. So you have to love the life you live right now while you create the life you want. Hal always says that, and it's so true. So I've created this business based on where I am, and I'm okay with all of that. And really living my story, being authentic, being okay with it, being able to say that I was a drug addict, being able to say that I had to borrow the money to go to the conference, really owning where I am. That is when everything started to change for me, because I no longer feared being outed, or I no longer worried about my past defining me, because I was owning it. And that, I think, is the key, is when you can finally say, this is okay, this is what happened to me, and be who you are, then it no longer controls you.
There's no shame?
No, there's no shame, and I can't even tell you how much lighter I am with no shame. So it's amazing. And making the biggest impact on men and women, helping people that suffer from depression and anxiety and all of the things that I've gone through. I have all these incredible tools that I've developed and learned to really be fierce in my life. And the biggest part in my life right now is the mentors that I have. I have, first of all, David Osborne told me to read 2 books when I went to the first conference, which everybody should read. The first one's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, because it will give you perspective in everyday life that nothing is harder than what they went through. And the second, of course, is Think and Grow Rich, which I have a Think and Grow Rich mastermind group. It's my whole goal in life to not only know this book frontwards and backwards, but to help other people understand it. So there's so many amazing things. But the mentors that I have, they're not people that are where I am. They're people that have huge success, and they've left these amazing footprints for me to follow, and being in this One Life community has given me access to them. So I'm so grateful. So grateful. Tim Rode, Mark Yagi, Steve Napolitan, everyone else that's really helped me through this. So you have to reach out to the people that live the life you want. That's how you get the life that you want.
Keeping that rear view in mind, but you're full force ahead with
full throttle, absolutely, yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, and I know everybody appreciates it in the community. The fact that these guys are being as authentic as they're being with their stories, one, it just shows you that they have no shame in it, and their past definitely isn't defining what their future looks like. And I encourage everybody to, if some of this is resonating with you, or you're in a place in your life where you may be in a valley and you're looking to get back to a peak, identify and relate to some of these techniques, qualities, routines that Rhonda and Jeff are sharing with you guys. And if you guys have questions, give me a shout out over here, and I would love to ask them. The great thing about our Hangouts is we're very transparent, open, and real with each other. So if you guys want to know stuff about them on their daily routines or things that you'd like to know a little bit more about, then feel free to type in a question. So Rhonda, thank you for sharing first and foremost.
I have just one other thing to share. Meditation. Meditation. Start meditating. If you want to know how, message me. It's been the biggest factor in how I've changed my life.
I love it. And I will circle back around and let everybody know how they can get a hold of Rhonda if you want to know more about her mastermind group or some of the other sub-community groups that we have going on here in One Life. Whether you're a young hustler or you're someone who's looking to change their finances or just looking to have more of an abundant mindset, create a routine. There's so many cool groups within our community. If you don't know, now you know. And we'll be giving you guys that information to get connected with all the great leaders and community members. So, all right, I am leading into my main squeeze, Jeff.
All right.
Where's your background, your M&M background on the wall?
Oh, no M&M background going on here. It's just all real estate, buddy.
Cool. So I want to kind of introduce you on. It's weird how the universe connects people, and was at a real estate conference, and I had Tim Rode, who is a great friend, mentor, and the founder of our One Life community, and he gives me a call and he goes, "Dude, you got to connect with this guy Jeff." And I'm like, "Tim, I'm running around. I'm trying to meet 100 people at these conferences and sit down." He goes, "No, if you're gonna sit down with somebody, you got to sit down with this guy, and his story is insane." And when I got to sit down with Jeff, not only was I a little taken back at first, when I got to peel back the layers of this dude and see how genuine he is and to see what he's accomplished after, in my opinion, one of the most captivating stories I've ever got to witness in person, is very, very cool, and I'm excited for him to share his story and what he's overcome in his lifetime. So if you have those yeah but moments or those times where you're feeling sorry for yourself or you're having a pity party, I don't even want to hear it. I can't even give you a nice little piece of pity. So Jeff, why don't you kind of share a little bit about your story, where you started, fast forward on where you're at today, and let's get to know you a little bit.
Sure. So my name is Jeff, and when I was 14 years old, I got put into handcuffs and was taken off and to the juvenile system. And the reason for that was I committed a crime when I was 14. I put a guy in the trunk of his car for 20 seconds, and then and took his car. I wound up popping the trunk after that 20 seconds, and he jumped up out of the trunk and he ran down the street. And that's the crime in itself, the whole thing. And at 14 years old, I was sentenced to 20 years in the adult prison system here in Washington State.
Okay, slow down for 1 second. So this crime, and most people are thinking, okay, so he potentially kidnapped a guy, put him in his trunk, and was driving down the street and could have potentially injured him. So the severity of the crime, obviously, you know, you didn't murder anybody, but what were they painting the picture as?
So so I didn't potentially kidnap somebody. I did kidnap somebody. So you know, I did put a guy in the trunk of his car. I didn't drive anywhere. We initially just he has a name, and I like to call him by his name. His name's David. So we put David in the trunk of his car, and I popped the trunk on the keys. I had never had a car before. I was 14 years old, so I was looking at the keys, and he was banging back in the back of the trunk. One of my co-defendants had put tape on his mouth, and because he was in the back of the trunk, we were thinking to ourselves, we don't want him screaming down the trunk. It'd be kind of weird to be driving down the road and somebody screaming out of the trunk. So we put tape on his mouth, and a piece of that tape went on his nose, and he started banging in the back of the trunk. So we were like, man, we got to go back there and get him to not bang anymore. And so when I stepped out of the car, I looked at the keys and I was like, wow, there's a button on here to pop the trunk. I should just pop the trunk instead of using the key. I was 14, and I grew up really, really poor. So this was a fancy car to me at the time. And so I popped the trunk, and bam, this guy like jumps out of the trunk and he starts running down the street. And I just chased after him, and then he like jumped onto a garbage truck, and I was like, all right, I guess I better get out of here because he's now not with us anymore. So so I
So you're a young, dumb teenager, just making a poor decision. You got arrested.
Yeah.
You got sentenced to 20 years. Where did that take you?
So that is what happened. So I wound up getting arrested for that and getting sentenced to 20 years at 14 years old and into the adult prison system. So I didn't do any juvenile time, as they call it. I went right into the adult prison system. And you know, I grew up just doing my, you know, adapting, right? A lot of times I don't really know where to go with the story except to say that I just started living prison life. I started hanging out with a group of guys called the Fellas, and who are, you know, in prison for murder and robberies and stuff way more heinous than I did, and you know, I was just living the day-to-day life and growing up with them as a 14-year-old kid. They were like taking care of me in a way. They were watching me grow, watching me go through puberty, watching me go through maturity. And then at the same time, I was also involved in the education system that they have while you're incarcerated, and just kind of being surrounded with the whole prison living, you know, just knowing the system, learning the system, just figuring out life. And at the same time as that's taking place, I didn't really have family in my corner. You know, I grew up really poor. I grew up in multiple different foster homes before prison. From the time that I was 11 until I was 14, and I try not to focus on the number that was told to me one day, but they say that from 11 to 14 that I was in 62 different foster homes. And so when I was in the prison system, it was just like it was just another foster home to me, it seemed like, you know, and I was just adapting and trying to figure out how to be and how to survive it. And got surrounded by the Fellas and started growing up as the Fellas, and eventually, you know, a lot of people know that gangs exist in prison, and when they hear the word Fellas, the first thing that people ask me, oh, is that a gang? Is that you were part of a gang in there? And the fellas really aren't a gang so much to say. They're just um, if you're street smart, if you know how to be respectful to others and know how to walk the line in prison, and um, then you're part of the fellas. That's pretty much what it takes to be part of the fellas. And they're all walks of gang life that come to be a part of the fellas. It's like a group inside the group. And I
So
kind
these
of
were
just
basically the guys who, at a very important age, were somewhat defining the programming that was going on in your brain of how a man is supposed to operate, act,
in
and
prison.
yep.
Absolutely. So they would be like the mentors out here that we talk about, and they're the ones that kind of just help you survive your circumstance, and they're the ones that are seasoned. They've been around a while. They're the ones that are doing all the hustles. They're the ones that know how to get away with the hustles that they're doing. They're the ones that dictate some of what happens inside the prison system. And so it's a very I felt like it was the smart move for me to survive prison was to be with them, and to be a part of them, and to grow up around them, because I feel like that was my best bet to stay safe throughout my incarceration. And it was a smart strategy because it worked.
So, and just as a disclaimer, one, you're not a violent guy. Two, you haven't killed anybody. And three, you told me about a moment where, being that you had somewhat of a broken childhood, you shared a little bit about your relationship with your mom with me, and I know there was a point in time where you were heavy into your term and your sentence, and you
Sure.
had an experience that basically just flipped your world upside down. And tell me where you were currently at. So you were doing some hustling, and you were doing some deal making you were a player in the prison system, correct?
Right. So at the moment, and good thing this is recorded, so they have it against me now. But at the moment, it was I was doing a lot inside the prison. I had a cell phone at the time. Uh, I was in the mix of everything at the time, and I wound up getting a phone call saying that my mom was dying of cancer, and I wound up having to hustle up $700 in order to go see her for 1 hour exactly on her deathbed. And I remember having this, watching Oprah of all shows. Oprah had this, like I think it was in her last show, she talked about, in your life you'll come across very few aha moments. And so as I was traveling to see my mom, I was there's a Narrows Bridge here in our state, kind of like the Golden Gate for you guys down there. It's just a big bridge that is over a large body of water. And what's interesting is the prison that I was at was here, let's say, and I had to drive around this body of water and go over this bridge to where my mom was. And this journey, this path, is basically all the foster homes that I grew up in, just taking this freeway around. It's kind of, in 13 years, I had been incarcerated for 13 years and hadn't really driven around anywhere except from prison to prison. And so here I am on this journey to go see my mom, and kind of having like this memory lane journey of foster homes and life. And I was about to go over the Narrows Bridge, and I just remember asking myself, man, in just a few minutes I'm going to have some time with my mom. Do I hold her accountable for like a lot of negative stuff? The drugs, alcohol, the guy, like all the stuff, like a whole bunch of stuff that I could really hold her accountable for? Or do I let it go and give her the best hour that I can give her, and have a great memory to hold on to for the rest of my life, and give her a great memory to hold on for the rest of hers? And so there was this moment where we were crossing over the bridge, and I just kind of looked off, and it just looked like peace to me. Like it just looked like peace. I can't explain it. It was a nice day. The water was calm. I saw the sun. And so I just said, that's got to be it. I got to just let it go. And I feel like that was my aha moment for a lot of things in my life. And so I went there and I gave her the best hour that I could do, and give her and told her that I loved her. I didn't mention anything about anything negative in any way. And I just, I just let it go. And then when I let it go and I was returning back to the prison, I was like, man, how do I keep this feeling of positivity and let stuff go like this? This was in 2007. My release was in 2011. And I was just like, how do I let this go? How do I live this feeling that I feel inside? And something just told me that I had to change my mindset. I had to change. I had to let go of all the negative stuff. Even though some of the stuff that I was doing is technically legal stuff out here, it's still against the rules in there that brings heavy consequences. So I was like, forget that mindset and let it. Why even have any of that in your life to cause you any kind of stress or drama? Because if you're hustling in here and doing all this stuff and making yourself stressed out and frustrated all the time, you're going to carry that with you when you leave, and you're going to be doing the same thing when you get out. So so I chose to do that.
You let that go. You let that lifestyle go. You made that.
I did.
Yeah.
I took action. I got back and I really started changing my mindset. I had what's called prison vision. When you get raised with the fellas like you were saying, and they were talking to you and teaching you and all this stuff, they're actually teaching you a mindset and a what I like to call prison vision that you hold on to. Guys to this day even get out to this day and hold on to this prison vision. And it's tough to break that prison vision, but that's what I had to do. I had to take action to do that.
And so you also mentioned, though, once you made this decision, I think a lot of people who are trying to make changes in their life, a lot of people in their environment, whether that's family, friends, peers, sometimes they don't want people to make those changes. They don't want to allow people to take those strides in the right direction. And I think the one cool thing was you told me that you actually had a lot of guys that were excited for you because they knew you had a future outside of what you'd been exposed to over the last 10 years.
Sure. I get guys come out of prison. Just a couple days ago, actually, there was a guy that connected on Facebook, and he was like, I knew it. That was what he started his conversation with. And I was like, you knew what? He said, I knew you'd be a success. That's what he wrote back to me on the thing. So, when I get those messages, I try to just, take it and just be humble about it. But I don't feel like I'm a success. I feel like I'm living normal. I'm not doing anything different than you. You're a hardworking real estate agent. I'm beginning my career as a real estate agent. I'm hardworking too. So I don't feel like that's a success. I just feel like I'm living life how I should have been living life in the first place, and I have a great second chance. And so, there's lots of stuff, that led me to this. I knew that I needed to self-evaluate myself and take responsibility for everything that I was doing in my life. And then I had to forgive myself, and I did reach out to David a couple times, and if people Google the story, and they'll know that David and I have been in a third-party communication recently, and I've taken responsibility. I've owned it, as she said. You got to own it and own what you did, and you have to move forward. And then I had to start changing my mindset, and then I started to look at who I surrounded myself. It was interesting what she was saying was who are the people that you surround yourself with? And I started to be around those that were doing the same things that I was doing. They were studying. They were looking forward to their future. They were trying to make changes in their own lives. And, and I knew that if I kept the habit of studying, like I was studying real estate, I was studying self-help books, I knew that it could only do one thing for me, and that was lead me to something potentially positive when I released, and it lead me to a positive life and an awesome life. So I just started essentially time blocking inside prison to study every day, you know. And those were pretty much like some of the habits that I started changing. Those are the qualities. Those are kind of my routines. I tried to make smart choices that had positive results instead of choices that had potential negative results and sometimes negative results. I tried to start coming from contribution to kind of help others, meaning like, how could I help them shake their prison vision? And when I started doing that, it also helped me learn about myself and changing my own prison vision. You know, it changes your whole life. If you start to evaluate yourself and start taking the steps to improve your life, it happens, you know, and people can change. Like that's the biggest thing. I go and talk a lot of places, which I'll tell you when you want to know what I do with my life now. But the biggest thing is how many people that I come across that say, how did you change? As if they have this belief that you can't change. It's like, but it's not about changing. It's just about growing and learning from your mistakes. Like, how did you change? You've never made a mistake ever in your life? Like, I made a very severe mistake that cost me my freedom, but I compare it to other people who make mistakes. Like, how do you learn from your mistake? Do you make the same mistake? Are you saying that you don't change from making that mistake? Like,
Yeah.
people can change, you know? I didn't hear what you said.
No, yeah, you were definitely spot on. I think we know that the one constant in life is change, and how we respond and react to change is a very defining piece of one, telling us what we're made of inside, and two, what fork path in the road are we going to go down? You know, everybody makes mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes. You guys have, you know, we've all made mistakes, and yet how you respond to those mistakes are really kind of what tell a lot about your character, your DNA makeup, and how the outside world looking in will perceive you, but more importantly, how you will reaffirm and perceive yourself.
True.
And I think that's the most important thing, is the change that you guys decided, and we all decide, you know, if you decide to make positive change after a mistake and take a different direction than your past has initially, you know, led you down, you start to see that the impact and the ability you have to reaffirm these thoughts within your brain, your programming really leads to how you think about yourself. And when you tweak that programming, your thoughts change, which lead to different actions, which lead you to different results, which reaffirm your programming again. So sometimes it just takes a break in that chain, and at the end of the day, it's an awareness and it's a mindset, and it starts with us inside. And I just commend both of you guys. I think it's pretty cool to see two of our very engaged and active One Life community members. And the awesome thing is your guys' stories are amazing, and we also have hundreds more people like this in our community that all have their own story, their own journey, and it's just as special and just as meaningful. And I want to appreciate you guys sharing. So, Jeff, where are you at today after getting handcuffed, spending 14 years in the prison system? What does your present day look like right now?
Well, I'm actually a public speaker on the topic of motivation. I use my story to try to motivate people to make changes in their own lives, and I also use my story to motivate people who don't really struggle in their life, to try to help them reach out to do something to help others who might be struggling. I also speak to the legislature on the bills that they're deciding on that affect people who are incarcerated, man and woman, and juveniles for sure. On the work side of things, I have a small IT company that helps a mortgage companies do like their IT stuff. Just a small, basic little guy. And then finally, I'm also a real estate agent on the #1 real estate team in our state, which is the Ben Kenny real estate team in Seattle. And I live with a smile. That's what I do today.
That's I can
Awesome.
definitely attest, man. Every time I see you, you're smiling. You're always positive and upbeat. I got actually a question that came in here from Alicia, and Alicia wants to know, Jeff, what was the hardest transition from prison life to real life?
Um, the hardest thing is I was really well known in prison. Not a lot of people know this. Good question, Alicia. She's also my teammate on my team, so shout out. Um, so the hardest uh, the hardest thing that nobody really knows is that when I left prison, I was always surrounded by a group of friends who were like my brothers, and we were really, really good friends. And I left that and came out here to nobody really, and to not just like one friend maybe, and to go from leaving so many friends inside, strong, real, true friends, to none. That was really the hardest thing that's pretty much happened to me out here. I have a few good friends out here right now, um, but nothing like, and if they're watching, sorry to say this, but I really had strong bonds to a lot of guys in there, and knowing that one, that I may not see them again, and two, that I'm out here on my own trying to survive without friends. Just think about all your high school friends that you had, and turn it around. Like those were all my high school friends. You might be able to pick up your phone and call your high school friends that you grew up with, and talk to them right now, where I'm not able to do that. And so that's been pretty tough to deal with, even today. So
Well, I definitely would say that you got a friend in me, brother,
yeah,
and I
make sure you answer your
definitely knew
phone.
you got a.
Just kidding.
I'm always
Bird.
available. You can always message me.
Just kidding. Just kidding. You always reply.
Well, I want to wrap up with kind of a final little question. Give it to me in 1 minute or less. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Jeff?
In 5 years, I would like to have multiple income vehicles. Some of those being like a flipping company, maybe grow my IT company, have some investment properties. Most important goal to me in 5 years is I would like to own an Arco gas station because I'm tired of paying gas prices, so I need that to be a write-off.
Nice.
But I'm dead serious
Awesome, man.
about wanting to own one. I do want to own an Arco gas station for sure.
That's amazing, man. Well, I know with our wealth building webinar we got coming up here in the next few months with David Osborne, Rhonda mentioned him as well. He's been a mentor of mine, and if you want to talk about passive income streams and having multiple buckets of wealth that are coming in, that guy is an absolute guru and genius. So keep an eye out for that, guys. And Rhonda, if you had to say we know your past doesn't equal your future. Presently, you're at being a life coach today, and a pretty darn good one, I must say.
Thank you.
I love our masterminds and getting to share great conversations with you. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
5 years, I will be making a larger impact on people's lives. I will be doing seminars, public speaking. I have a book or two in me, I know I do. And I'll be traveling the world. I'm designing the life I want so that I can do it from anywhere I want with my love and maybe a couple more wiener dogs.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody else, too, that if you want to share, we've been encouraging our community to share a short video of their one life story. Feel free to make one on your iPhone. I know you guys are all attached to these things like they're glued to your hands. I know I am. And share a video and post it on our page. Get acquainted with the community. Get acquainted with the other members in the community. If you guys want to get a hold of Rhonda, how would they get a hold of you?
You can contact me through Facebook or and message me, and I'll give you my phone number. I'll be happy to talk to you in any way. I'm also launching my loveyourbiglife.com website this week, so you can also message me and contact me through there.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
Jeff, if anybody had any questions for you, wanted to talk to you about inspirational speaking or just learning from some of the pitfalls or getting some motivation from you, how can they reach you, man?
They can reach me at my email address or on Facebook. I'm on Facebook as well. I'm very tech savvy, so I can give you that information, and you can reach out, and I'll connect with you. I pretty much have my phone not far away, just like you. It's always near. So either one, and I reply.
Awesome.
I pick up my phone and I reply. So
I do too.
Is that like a secret jab at me, Jeff?
no, that is a secret jab at like all the real estate agents out there that never answer their phone when they have people's properties listed.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you are a good one, my man. Well, I really want to wrap up for content to our community, to the members of the group, and to really just share life. And that's really what this One Life community is about: is dream it, plan it, and live it. And you guys dreamt something different. You guys created a plan.
In and out.
Everybody, Jeff and Rhonda on the website. If you guys have any questions for them, Jeff just put his email up on the screen, and I look forward to seeing you guys out in Philly. Remember, the dates are May 16th and 17th, and we have a jam-packed lineup, like I was saying, David Osborne, and I don't want to reveal too many other ones, but if you go to the website, you can see some of our headliners, and we're going to have an amazing time out there. So I look forward to connecting with you guys as well. It's time to wrap it up, and I hope everyone has a fantastic week. We'll see you guys next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Andy should be taking us off being live here any minute.